computer. What's up, baby? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? The Yellow Card Podcast is back. We are back, baby. We're returning. Took a little hiatus just because life happens. My boy Jones has had some updates on his life. I've had some updates on my life. So took a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back. And the way that we're gonna be doing things is very, very different than from what we are used to doing, which is the regular Premier League recaps, going down the tables and predicting matches. All that shit's gone. With the predictions, we will tweet those out, but we're not gonna be doing the topics of conversations in regards to that. Number one, Jones, welcome back, brother. Nice to see you. How you feeling? I know life's hit you a little bit, but good to see you again, my dude. Good to be back.
Dude, it literally looks like that you've just DJ'd 45 straight days and you have zero sleep with the way you are wearing fucking sunglasses inside right now.
Yep. Yep. It's still sunny over here in beautiful Boston, Massachusetts, with a little bit of rain and everything pissa about this state.
Absolutely fucking crazy.
Yep. But anyways, so the way that we're gonna be doing this episode, which, by the way, whatever, it's episode whatever fucking number you want to come up with. It you can do episode 69 because we fucked up and we dropped it. So do episode 69, whatever you want to call it, or just the revival, I guess. We call it the revival.
I think this is still season 2, episode 29.
I want to say you're probably right, but whatever.
I had to guess.
Let's get to the meat and potatoes of this week's podcast, which, by the way, we're gonna be recording probably every other week, just because, again, life is busy, but we wanted to continue providing great content for you guys and appreciate all your support, standing by us, continuing to follow us, and asking us for content. So really appreciate you all. Let's get back to it. So the round of 16 of the Champions League Cup came out just earlier today. Matches have been announced. I'll let Jones go through those matches real quick, but not a lot of me personally. I don't feel like there's a lot of excitement for this round of 16. I don't know if maybe you see it the same exact way as I do, but I kind of wanted to see some real like deadlock collisions between the teams that are competing for the Champions League Cup this year. And to be quite frankly honest with you, I just don't really see a lot of excitement for this round of 16. Let's go through the matches. Let's go through what the lineup looks and your train of thought on the matches.
Yeah, I mean, so to start off real quick, we got RB Leipzig and Real Madrid. We got FC Copenhagen and Manchester City. We have Lazio and Bayern Munich. We have PSG and Real Sociedad. We have PSV and Borussia Dortmund. We have Inter Milan and Atletico Madrid. We have Napoli and Barcelona. And we have FC Porto and Arsenal. Those are our 8 matchups here. Looking at them, I think the 2 best ones would be, I think Inter and Atletico is going to be really, really good. And I think Napoli and Barcelona are good. The Italian side going up against the Spanish sides create some good moments. So I think getting that will excite it a little bit. But at the end of the day, don't get me wrong. I think Leipzig and Madrid has the potential to be really, really good, but I think Madrid is a level above Leipzig. Manchester City always gets a team that kind of sneaks out of the group stage, or a team that you wouldn't expect to come out of the group stage in the round of 16. It happens almost every year, so I'm not surprised by that. Lazio and Bayern, I think Harry Kane and that team is just too. Honestly, right now that team they're a little all over the place. So I think there's some potential that if Lazio gets going at the right time here, I think Lazio could upset them. Do I think it'll happen 100%? No, but I think Lazio could give them a good fight here. And then PSG and Real Sociedad, I think Paris Saint-Germain has that. Sociedad's gritty. They're tough. They'll play you tough, but I don't think at the end of the day that Sociedad's going to be able to compete with PSG in a full two-leg here. I think one that's interesting as well, now that I think about it, obviously the Italian versus Spanish sides are really, really good, but I think us getting Arsenal and FC Porto, I think Porto's going to give them a run for their money. I think Porto, they have the potential to get into the quarterfinals here. I think with this draw, I think Arsenal's good. I just think that they're a team like they'll go up against a team like Porto and they won't play their best, and they'll just try to cruise. They'll just try to cruise on through, and not even worry about it. But I think FC Porto will give them. I would say that's probably my upset of the round of 16 would be FC Porto beating Arsenal.
Yeah, no, I would almost agree with you. I think the best match of this whole entire round of 16 slate is definitely Inter Milan versus Atletico Madrid. It's a great clash. Two, I would say maybe even leveled squads right now. Griezmann is at the shape of his life again for Atletico Madrid. He's doing fantastic things. Inter is just cooking all things right now. They got a great coach in their front office. They're doing things right, and the January transfer window could look very optimistic for their reinforcement necessity. So it makes for a really good clash. I think for Lazio, I'd be intrigued to see how they stack up against this Bayern side, because Harry Kane, like you said, he's also firing off on all cylinders. I think he's 20 goals for 14 games or something like that, or 14 goals in 20 games. One of the two. We'll have to check that stat again, but he's firing off in all cylinders. Thomas Tuchel has got them going.
20 goals in 14 games.
Okay, I mean Thomas Tuchel has them going in the right direction. Unfortunately for Tuchel internally in the Bundesliga, it hasn't worked out very well to say. But Bayern Munich is Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich is the giant of the German league, and therefore you expect them to compete at the highest level. Do I think Lazio can upset Bayern Munich? 100% in Italy. I think anytime that any team goes into Allianz Arena in Germany, it's just it's a whole different atmosphere. It's like it's like going to Galatasaray if you're playing in the Europa League. It's like if you go into Benfica or Porto, in the Portuguese league. It's a different atmosphere. So I expect that clash to be interesting. Do I expect a major upset? Probably not, just because Bayern is Bayern, and Bayern will continue to compete at the highest levels. But I don't expect an upset there. I think the second most interesting match here is actually PSV versus Dortmund. PSV's got a lot of talent that's projected to be very busy, if not in this January transfer window, more likely in the summer transfer window. They got a lot of potentials there coming out of PSV. So there could be some intriguing talent there that could put Dortmund in kind of a tough spot. Dortmund as well has been competing very well, doing okay so far in the Champions League, and therefore an intriguing match. And the last one that I agree with is Porto versus Arsenal. Porto, we've seen them compete every time in the Champions League. They are a very gritty team. They're one of those teams that a lot of people overlook and quickly give up on them, and then they continue to prove people time after time after time that they're one of the, if not in the top 25, easily in the top 30 of Europe's toughest teams. And going against an Arsenal team that is firing all cylinders. Mikel Arteta is doing the right thing with his team in the Premier League. They're currently on top of the league right now. Everybody in the whole entire squad is performing pretty well. He seems to have finally figured out the formula that works for Arsenal, offensively, defensively, creatively. It's a great team altogether. I think this is probably the season where Mikel Arteta can finally claim some some hardware to put it in that office. So,
I
uh,
just sorry to cut you off. I just think that I feel like we kind of saw the same from Arsenal the first few months of the season last year.
yeah.
But then by the end of the January transfer window, they started their slowly decline down.
Oh no,
So
I agree, and I wholeheartedly know that for Arsenal to be competing basically in about three tournaments because they're going to be in the FA Cup, Champions League, and now Premier League. It's going to be very very tough, condition wise, physicality wise, injury wise, which is what really hurt them last year. Their injury list and the injured people that they relied on were people that were fulfilling gigantic roles um, within the squad. I think if Arsenal can maintain themselves, in a busy status, so the January transfer window to have some reinforcements that they can bring off the bench for those other competitions, whether it's the Premier League or the FA Cup, and given some rest to their premier stars for the Champions League, they actually got a shot. They got a shot for this Champions League. Uh, and I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said, if they finally win a trophy in any of those three tournaments.
I just maybe they can win the League Cup. I don't see them
Yeah.
winning. I don't see them winning the FA Cup, and I don't see them winning the Premier, the Champions League.
Now let's transition into that because we've talked about how good of a process it's been for Mikel Arteta at the very first. People were ready to give up on him. I was ready to be like, dude, why is he even a coach? Because he went from Unai Emery, who, by the way, we'll talk about him very quick, to somebody that wasn't all that proven yet in Mikel Arteta. I mean, he was an assistant manager for Pep Guardiola at Manchester City and did a very good job, but had yet to be proven as a club leader. And somewhere in Arsenal, where it's a major club, you know, there were serious doubts. But the guy has developed a very deep squad within Arsenal. You look up and down that roster, and it's the age average is what, 26, 27. So these are players that got a lot of potential still going in for them, and probably another 6 to 7 years of high quality level of football to be played, and where this is a high up and pressuring team that has delivered a performance. I'd say for Mikel Arteta, um, one of the best managers right now in the Premier League. There are some managers that are in hot water, and we'll get to those candidates very soon. But also want to highlight some of the managers that have delivered really, really good stuff so far that are probably not getting their flowers as they should. Mikel Arteta is one of them. I think, another one that I just mentioned was Unai Emery with Aston Villa. This was a team that he took basically at the cusp of being relegated to bringing them to middle of the table, and now they are just points away from being leaders of the table. They're a few matches away from securing a spot within the Champions League. If they continue at this trend, if they can continue to bring that high quality and intensity into their game that they have brought all the way through February, they're pretty much guaranteed a spot in the Champions League, whether it's second, third, or fourth spot. They're guaranteed to go for the Champions League, unless the whole team just collapses on its own, which would be disaster for Unai Emery. Um, and then another manager that I think deserves his flowers as well is none other than Big Ange. This is a guy that we saw as a serious, very high potential candidate for the job at Tottenham, and he ended up getting it. We spoke about it in several of our episodes previously. He ended up getting it. Unfortunately, right now, through a lot of injuries that Tottenham are dealing with, their levels have dropped significantly. But if Postecoglou can manage to have a decent January transfer window and manage to get at least 3 of those injuries back in time, I think realistically we're looking at a Tottenham that could be in second or third place and be back in the Champions League. And all that glory goes to Ange Postecoglou and the way that he's really, really, created a deep threat in Tottenham. This is a guy that is not afraid to try new stuff, afraid to be creative with his lineup. He's not afraid, to put new guys in new positions and see where it goes. And that's exactly what the Premier League is all about right now. It's about creativity and bringing something completely outside of the norm. We've seen high pressure schemes, we've seen defensive schemes, we've seen creativity pods and all that stuff, but we haven't seen a lot of anything of nuance. And Postecoglou brings that. I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know who else you would consider as a manager that should be getting a lot of flowers. I personally have one more, but I think we both agree um, on that candidate. But I'm curious to see who you who you see as a really good manager right now, and then we'll get into the manager star in the hot seat.
Um, like you said, I mean, I think when you talk about Arsenal, I think the biggest thing issue-wise that they had last year was goaltending, and then when they got David Raya, we saw how important it was, and
Yep.
you see where Brentford is right now on the table. It's because of goaltending.
Yep.
It
Yep.
just There was a great transition for Arsenal. It was nice and clean between him and Matt Turner. They're solid at goaltender this year, and I think that they can compete with anybody in this league. But it's just going to come down to how this team fares playing in all these European competitions. I think another team that I shouldn't say caught me by surprise, but I saw what they did in the transfer window over the summer, and I thought that injuries would come back to bite them in the butt. But they've been healthy so far. I feel like they've made the right moves in the transfer window. Passing on these big midfielders that cost a lot of money. Went to a team like Chelsea, especially in Caicedo. I think this team is. I'll give them all the credit in the world. I think they've done a hell of a job, and I hope that they continue and they produce at a high level. I'm gonna say Liverpool. We had Liverpool finishing in the top four, but right now I feel like they're playing to a level that not even I thought that they would be at right now at this point in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Only having one loss through 17 games, and the way that they lost was like it was a heartbreaking loss. They were in it the whole time. They shouldn't have lost that game. But the difference between this year and last year with this team is they're winning these close games. Like if you remember against Newcastle when they played earlier in the year, Nunez scored the 2 goals in like the 80th and 85th minute to put them ahead. They're getting guys that can contribute. Harvey Elliott had the big goal
Mm-hmm.
to put them in the position where they're in now. So I think, like you said, I think you know Liverpool has shown, and I think Jurgen Klopp deserves a little bit more credit here than he's getting.
I would agree. Yeah. Yep. I would agree.
And
Um,
I mean, to go back on your Tottenham take, I think Big Ange has put together a team, their style, and don't forget they don't have Hugo Lloris, so they've had to rely on Vicaro, who's played very
yep.
very well for them in the back end.
Yep.
He's getting guys like James Madison to contribute. Richarlison is contributing a lot more than he did last year. Kuleveski, guys that were kind of flopping for them last year, are producing this year. So they're getting guys to produce, and that's the biggest thing. Right now they sit a point back of fourth. They have plenty of potential here, and their schedule is very, very favorable for them. I think they have a potential to make a little bit of run here. I think the biggest thing is we need to see how legit this Villa team is. Yes, they have only given up 21 goals in 17 games. They've scored 37 plus 16 goal differential. But at the same time, they're winning games at home. They're 4-1-0 in their last 5 games. They're home against Sheffield United. I think my thing is I need to see them go on the road and win a good game. Yeah, they beat Tottenham at Tottenham, which was good, but I think they need to beat a team like United on the road. They need to beat a team like I think they still have to play Manchester City on the road, maybe down the line in April. Brighton's a tough team to play at home. They need to win some of these big road games that they have later on in the season to contribute and to continue where they are on the path to success here. I think Another one that I think we kind of got to give some flowers to has to be David Moyes. This West Ham team started off really, really hot, and I think there were a bunch of people that were ready to kick him to the curb. I know they've been struggling a little bit as of late, but at one point, I mean, they're sitting at 8-3-6. They're in the middle of the pack. They're nowhere near relegation. I think they are in a great spot here, and I think with a potential good January transfer window, I think they have the potential where they can get better. And to think that they've gotten better not having Declan Rice is kind of crazy to think about as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. I think the one other manager that I want to give a lot of credit to is um especially somebody that has been severely challenged and just just the results that he's been delivering so far and as of late, um being able to put this team above the relegation zone but still be able to keep them competitive. It's none other than Sean Dyche with Everton. This guy has been dealing with probably one of the most challenging clubs in his whole entire history as a manager. And he's delivering. He's delivering results. 7 matches in a row, won, or at least tied, where they're gaining points. They've been facing a 10-point deduction just due to disciplinary action that was delivered onto them by the league. And the guy is still keeping Everton pretty much a threat. They are sitting 16th right now, 8-2-7. Yeah, not too hot and all, but if that 10-point deduction wasn't taken off, I mean, they're
They'd be
currently sitting at
they'd be
16.
10th. They'd be 10th.
Yeah, they'd be above Chelsea right now. They'd be head to head against Brighton, and they would be competing. They would be competing probably for an FA Cup spot, which is, I mean, for a Europa League spot, which is unbelievable to see out of somebody that doesn't have a lot of money to work with, doesn't have a lot of really high end quality players to work with, has been facing disciplinary actions, has been facing having to work with an owner that's not willing to really spend a lot of money either, um, and still delivering a team that's very much working very, very well gelled. Um, tomorrow they have a match in the EFL Cup against Fulham. I already see this as a potential win for Everton 2-1, just because Fulham has not been in the greatest shape so far lately. They've been dropping a lot of form, to be quite frankly honest with you. Um, but this is somebody that that we really need to be uh, given a lot of credit to. This guy has been facing all odds head on and has not complained even once, which is also one of the high qualities of that coach that not a lot of people are willing to credit. This guy does not complain much. He's a straight shooter, says it like it is. Um, Very willing to work with whatever is given to him, and he just gets to work. That's all. That's all you could ask for in a manager. Now, speaking about managers that are in the hot seat, however, yes.
I was about to say before we transition to hot seat. I mean, just to touch on Everton, like you said, they'd be a top 10 team
Mm-hmm.
if not to point to deduction. But the thing is, and the issue that they've had in years past is defensively, allowing opponents to concede
Yep.
more. They've only given up 20 goals in 17 games, which is a tremendous feat. Defensively they're playing really well. They're getting guys like Decore to step up for them. Calvert-Lewin's starting to come back around, which is helpful. But the biggest thing is they're winning games on the road. At home, they're 3-1-5. On the road, they're 5-1-2. That's a very big difference compared to where this Everton team usually is. So I think you have, like you said, Deshay deserves a lot more credit than he's getting.
100%. Yeah. No, and that all comes together full circle when it comes to spending and getting the right utility players that you need in order for those areas to be fully covered. Defensively, you don't have the money to be able to go and say, in the January transfer window, I want to get a player from PSV as my as my defensive backup. I want to go to the German league and spend some money over there to bring a good center defensive mid. I don't have money to go to the Portuguese league and potentially invest in a good forward that can be of complementary needs to somebody like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, or that could replace Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Because for all we know too, if the owner is not willing to spend the money, Calvert-Lewin could also be in the transfer window very soon. So again, it all comes down full circle. Huge credit to Sean Dyche, and I just hope for Everton that they continue to go this way. They really deserve to have some glory days coming back to them as soon as possible. We saw what they were capable to do under Carlo Ancelotti. Now it's time to see it under Sean Dyche. I think he deserves it. Now, managers that are on the hot seat, however, no surprises whatsoever right now. Erik ten Hag is obviously on the hot seat right now, especially with Ineos buying part of Manchester United, potentially looking to create some sort of changes happening around. I don't think, personally, as a Manchester United, that this is the right call to be making. We need to be able to stick it out through the tough times and stop putting bandages through things that have not worked. Whenever a manager has been in the hot seat for Manchester United, we immediately replace, and it doesn't work always. We replace Louis van Gaal with Jose Mourinho. We replaced David Moyes with Louis van Gaal. We replaced Jose Mourinho and brought in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We replaced Solskjaer immediately for Erik ten Hag. It hasn't worked. It hasn't. Management-wise, managing Manchester United, there is no identity for Manchester United. It's been lacking since the days of Sir Alex Ferguson. So therefore, you need to stick it out through a manager. Is Ten Hag the guy that you probably stick it out through? Probably at this point, because you kind of need to start changing the dynamic a little bit around the organization altogether. But is it the right thing to immediately sack him and bring somebody in like the candidates that they're looking at? No, because if at this point you now have even your own players are saying we're standing behind our manager, he's a great manager himself. When was the last time that we heard anything like that from Manchester United players, from legacy players that have stuck it out through all of those managements aforementioned? Your Luke Shaws, your Scotty McTominays, your David De Gea's of the world when De Gea was still at Manchester United, your Anthony Martial, your Marcus Rashfords. These are guys that are sticking out for Erik ten Hag. They know that they know that he's got the management skills. They know that he's got the ideas, the tactics, and all that stuff. Has it worked for him? No. Injury wise, investment wise, we haven't done enough for Manchester United to actually have all the right tools in place for Ten Hag to be successful. However, the one thing that really, really scares me a lot about this current status of Manchester United is that we continue to spend this stupid money on signings that are clearly not going to work. We spend 95 million euros on somebody like Anthony Santos, which, by the way, great performance previously against Liverpool. He was able to contain Luis Diaz. Not a lot of people can say that in the Premier League these days. He was able to contain him and able to keep him under control. Great. But one match does not define the massive investment that Manchester United did on this player to be not only in controversies like he's been this whole entire season, but to underperform like he did last season. I haven't seen a single goal out of this guy yet this season. I haven't seen anything that creates all the hype that was brought on him when that 95 million signing was done. And quite frankly, I know Ten Hag continues to rely on him, but we need to see now more of these performances from Anthony Santos to finally be behind and see what his worth was when all this money was invested. I'm not entirely sure that the Sofiane Amrabat investment was a smart one. It's it's there. Like yeah, he brings in decent intensity, but it's not. I don't see Amrabat fit for the Premier League. I think if I had been Fiorentina, I would have transferred him somewhere like the Spanish league, or maybe the around the Italian league as well, or maybe even the German league. But the Premier League, where you need to be fast paced and highly competitive, I'm not entirely sure that it was Amrabat's time just yet. Um, the list continues in terms of signings for Manchester United, but right now, the best case scenario for Manchester United right now would be to continue to ride out with Ten Hag, let him cook in the January transfer window, let him figure out some sort of chemistry that can finally happen around Manchester United. So that way, next season, there is chemistry within the office and there is chemistry with the employees so that they can finally figure out what their identity is going to be going forward. And another thing that they need to change is the captaincy. Bruno Fernandes cannot continue to be the captain of this team. Does he bring the high intensity? Yes. Is he highly competitive? Yes. But disciplinary wise, he is not what defines Manchester United for a captain. We went from having amazing captains in Rio Ferdinand, Roy Keane, good God, Wayne Rooney. These are guys that were intense, highly competitive, very disciplined, very driven, always carried out the Manchester United badge with that honor. I haven't seen that out of Bruno Fernandes. And I didn't see that before out of Harry Maguire. Did I actually see that this week out of Scotty McTominay? Yes. And that is a guy that actually deserved the opportunity to wear the captain band against Liverpool. And he did just fine. He did just
I
fine for a massive clash, by the way, because Liverpool had Manchester United by the throat. I'm just really surprised that that goal never came.
The biggest issue with Manchester United, it's not that Ten Hag's a bad manager. It's not that some of these signs haven't worked. The biggest issue is this team has no chemistry because
No, none.
they haven't been healthy enough to be able to do it. When Lisandro Martinez comes back, this defense sharpens up, and I don't think there's going to be an issue. Casemiro comes back to solidify the midfield. You know, the biggest issue is that your leading goal scorer right now is Scotty McTominay. That's the issue. You guys up front aren't getting it done. Marcus Rashford has been a shell of himself. He is not in the form like he was towards the end of last season.
And there's two other major issues as well. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but the major issues is again the people that we're signing. We signed a Casemiro that is towards the higher end, towards the tail end of his career, right? Therefore, he's going to be more injury prone. Same with Rafael Varane. Same with other players around the institution itself. We are not investing correctly in our scouts, which then that leads to the fact that we don't have a proper sporting director at Manchester United. We just don't have a proper sporting director. And that is a huge, huge, huge problem when you think about it for the size of a club like Manchester United. One of the biggest clubs in the world, and they don't have a proper sporting director. Do you realize how much of an issue that creates when you are doing all these signings and you're spending the type of stupid money that you are unloading onto these signings? That is a gigantic issue for Manchester United altogether.
I just think they haven't been able. Mountain's missed time. Casemiro's missed time. Sandro Martinez has missed time. You know, guys like Holland hasn't figured it out. Jadon Sancho is probably on his way out of the club. You know, that never really truly fully worked out. Garnacho has not been to the level of where he has the potential to be at. You can go a plethora of different ways. I don't think anything has to do with Erik ten Hag here. I mean, if you look at where they are in the Prem, they're 9-1-7. They just can't score. They have 18 goals in 17 games. They've only given up 21, which is, I think, tied for like the third fewest. Defensively is not the issue. I shouldn't even say we, because it's not me. You just don't have guys up front that can put the ball in net.
Yep.
And excuse me. with the schedule that you have coming up, West Ham, Villa, Forest, Tottenham, Wolves is your next 5 games in Prem. You got to win at least 3 of those. At West Ham, that's gonna be a tough one. At home against Villa should be good. You should beat Nottingham Forest. Tottenham, you'll always play them tough. And at Wolves is gonna be a tough one. It's a tough stretch for them coming in here. So they need to get healthy. I think with getting Lisandro Martinez back, hopefully before the Tottenham game, definitely helps. And I think defensively, there has been an issue. If they can get guys up front to get some chemistry with one another, and they can get guys to start putting the ball in the net, you get a couple guys that can score 10 goals in the season for you. There's a highly considerable chance that this team can finish in the top 4.
I agree, and I think the other part of this is much to what you have said. You have team players in this Manchester United roster that are highly essential for the success of Manchester United, and because of those absences, you haven't been able to actually change your tactic fully. You continue to be in a formation of 4-1-3-2, sometimes 4-1, so on and so forth. But realistically, a good formation for this Manchester United team in the way that Erik ten Hag plays football in that high pressure intensity kind of football, it's really a high pressure 4-4-2. Maybe even a 3-5-2 like Conte had Chelsea playing under for a while. Maybe even a 3-4-3 could work as well. But you can't continue to rely on your sole single striker up front. Not in this league. That used to work, but it doesn't work anymore. Look at how good Liverpool has been since implementing 2 strikers up front. Look at how good Arsenal is putting 2 strikers up front. Manchester City, they have at least 5 strikers in their roster, if I'm not mistaken, 5, 6 strikers. But at all times, you always see Erling Haaland partner up with Phil Foden, or Erling Haaland partner up with Julian Alvarez. It's always 2 strikers. One of them is a fake strike. It's a fake 9, I guess, in your lineup because he then plays a wing, but still a striker. We don't have that. We continue to use a right winger and left winger that don't actually know how to strike correctly, unless it's Alejandro Garnacho, which his little hot streak kind of ended very fast, or unless it's a Marcus Rashford. But like you said, Marcus Rashford has not been in the shape that he was just last year. Last year, he was far in the best shape that I've ever seen him play. This year, he's not even a shade of himself. And that inconsistency also affects the club. I think realistically, a really, really, really good formation for this Manchester United team would be, if Onana was at the highest levels that he could be, obviously Onana and Ned,
Dude, he leads the league in clean sheets. He's not the issue.
No, he's not. He's not, but he needs to sharpen up more because the same mistakes that we saw in De Gea are the same mistakes that we're seeing in Andre Onana. The stupid goals are happening, and the hardest goals to cover, he's saving them.
I think it's at the same time I see the comparison, but I think Onana is definitely a step above than where David De Gea was at this point last year.
Okay, so either way, so Andre Onana would definitely be your starting keeper. Then you go for Luke Shaw, Rafael Varane. You go for
Lindelof or Lisandro Martinez, depending on how.
You go for Martinez, and then you go for somebody like Aaron Wan-Bissaka in your back foot, because Wan-Bissaka was also playing in really good shape. I don't know why we continue to do that same mistake in that freaking side continuously. We continue to rotate between Wan-Bissaka and Dalot, and we haven't given consistency to this defense to build that confidence around themselves. We have to keep that consistency at all times, otherwise it's not going to work in the back line. Then you go with Casemiro, McTominay. You go with probably Rashford and Garnacho or Rashford and Anthony Santos, and then you put um, Hoyland up front, and you give them, I don't know, you could even give him Anthony Marshall up front as well with him to create that double threat. But we're not creating anything different formation wise, and that is something that has already been figured out of Manchester United. Anytime that we compete against any team in the top six, any team in the top six has already figured out our formula. We need to create something new. So unfortunately, Ten Hag is on the hot seat, not for the right reasons, and I hate it because this is a guy that deserves a chance to be given at least 3 to 4 years to let him cook out a plan. If it doesn't work out, then you kick him out. But good teams have managed to stick it out through. Liverpool, first 2 seasons wasn't very good for Jurgen Klopp. It was very questionable. Now Liverpool is regarded as probably in the top five threats that there are in all of Europe. Why? Because Jurgen Klopp figured it out. Let him cook. Same with Mikel Arteta. Same with Pep Guardiola. For Pep Guardiola, his first 2 seasons were not all that great either. And that transition from Mancini to Guardiola was very difficult to process, but it's still figuring out. You have to let these guys cook. I'm not saying that Ten Hag is at the level of Club, Ancelotti, Guardiola, Mancini, or any of those guys, because it's not a fair comparison to him. But I think you need to let him cook. The next manager that I think is definitely on his way out, unfortunately, is the chapter happening right now at Nottingham Forest. Steve Cooper could potentially be seeing his way out of Nottingham Forest probably halfway through the season. They already are looking at candidates. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I saw a report earlier on today that Nuno Espirito Santo is one of the guys that they're highly considering to bring in as a potential replacement. Uh, it's unfortunate, but what's happening with Nottingham Forest right now, with the roster that they have and all these investments that they have made, kind of does force the hand of the owner to finally make a change. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for sure that he's definitely the next one that is going to get sacked by their team. I think they've given him a couple years in the Prem, and he hasn't been able to produce much. I think Nuno Santo is definitely a good option for them.
Yeah.
I don't hate the idea of them trying to go after a guy like Ralph Hasenhudl, maybe a Graham Potter, a Patrick Vieira, or even if they can try and convince Marco Silva from Fulham to come over as well. I think they got potential options that I think can help this team moving forward. But he's definitely the big one on my list. I think the next one for me, I think, because I definitely agree 100% about Nottingham Forest. I think the next one for me is definitely Gary O'Neill from Wolves.
That's on my list as well. I agree with you
Like,
on that.
don't get me wrong. I think he's doing the best of what he can, and they got the revolving doors coming around here. But at the end of the day, I think they they need some sort of consistency. Yeah, you want to give him a little bit more time, but I think at the end of the day, I think Wolves wants to get consistency. I don't think this is their guy. I think they can go in to for like a Ralph Hasenhudl, Patrick Vieira, somebody like that, give them a nice 3-year deal and let them start to get something going for them. Personally, I don't think there's like this. This is like the one year that I don't think there are managers that like should be on the way out. The only other one that I could see, definitely Roy Hodgson out of Crystal Palace. I know he's played well, but he's getting up there in age. Crystal Palace could use a little bit of a tweak there. That they haven't been as good as they've been in years past. But I don't think this isn't like the year where like we're gonna see like 7 or 8 managers get changed here. I see maybe a couple, but at the end of the day, like people are like Vincent Company should be gone from Burnley. Burnley's going to be fine if they go down next year. They just need consistency. If they can get consistent and maybe get a couple guys that can play in the Prem better, I think they can escape this year. But I don't know. We'll see.
I think so. I agree with your take on Steve Cooper out of Nottingham Forest, and I agree that you know a good potential replacement for him would be Nuno Espirito Santo. I do like your take on potentially being Ralph Hasenhüttl, potentially even being Patrick Vieira. Um, I think for the type of players that Nottingham Forest has, and for the type of scheme and development that this team has, there is one guy that's flying completely under the radar that can actually thrive at this team and that can bring them to what now RB Leipzig is. And that is none other than Ralph Rangnick. The guy's unemployed at this point. This is a tactician. This is somebody that can create a good thread with an underdeveloped team. And this is a team that's underdeveloped, has all the correct tools to get up there, just needs the proper guy with far more developed tactics. And I think Ralph Rangnick would be that guy. I don't disagree with you on Gary O'Neill as well out of Wolves. I think he is on his way out. Wolves, unfortunately, has not been the same since Nuno Espirito Santo left, and maybe it's time for a potential comeback for Nuno Espirito Santo at Wolves. I think this is the one guy that was able to figure it out over there. I wouldn't be opposed to a comeback for Nuno Espirito Santo. I wouldn't be opposed to Wolves potentially looking at Steven Gerrard. This is a lower type of intensity for Steven Gerrard. He absolutely shit the pooch when it came to Aston Villa, but Aston Villa is, in my opinion, by a bigger club than Wolves, has far more history, and unfortunately for Gerrard, at Aston Villa, he had far more tools to be more successful with. This is a team that you don't have a lot of pressure on, but you can make it work, right? And this is maybe where Steve Gerrard can be a shade of himself as he was when he was with why am I drawing a blank with the Scottish team with Rangers?
Rangers.
Maybe he could be a shade again of what he was with Rangers. That's the potential that Wolves has. One guy that we haven't talked about though is Paul Heckingbottom out of Sheffield United. That is a team that every year that they get promoted to the Premier League, they just can't seem to find success. It's time to be able to at least find a way to stay 1 or 2 years in the Premier League to then figure out what your real needs and investments are to further develop your club. I actually think that a good manager for that club would be somebody like Patrick Vieira. Sure, his time with Crystal Palace wasn't all that great, but who's to say that it shouldn't be all that great with Sheffield United? Give them a second chance. This is far less intensity, and even if they're relegated, it's not like it's something new in their history.
Am I drawing a blank here? Didn't Heckingbottom already go?
I'm not really sure. Hang on.
I think it was recently. I think Chris Wilder is their new manager.
How recent was that?
I
Because
think
I'm looking right now. Yeah, and it's still showing us Paul Heckingbottom as their manager.
On December 2nd, Sheffield United suffered a 5-0 loss away at relegation rival Burnley, leading to Sheffield United sacking Heckingbottom and replacing him with Chris Wilder 2 days later.
Okay, so sure enough, Chris Wilder is now the replacement and whatnot, but that is not the manager that you need. You need a higher caliber. Maybe even somebody like Julian Lopetegui. Like, sure, Wolves was not his cup of tea, but who's to say that he can't work with an underdeveloped team? Guy has done it in the past and has proven it. Wouldn't be surprised if he can do something with Sheffield United. Um, but again, my stance stays the same for Sheffield United. It'd be good for them to finally figure out a manager that they can trust for the next 2 to 3 seasons, at the very least, to then keep them promoted in the Premier League, so then they can finally invest in the pieces that they need for that club to finally have some sort of consistency in terms of competitive levels. Um, Other than that, I agree with you. All these managers right now in the Premier League make sense for the clubs that they are in. It's just a matter of results. This is a very highly competitive league right now, and it's not gonna be any different.
No.
Um, Now, last but not least, we've hinted towards it a little bit, but what are some January transfer market moves that we could potentially be seeing um, very soon? I mean, the January transfer market is going to be opening up in 2 weeks. Um, Goes all the way until I think mid-February, if I'm not mistaken. What are some transfers that we could potentially see in the European football?
Um, I don't know, man. I've kind of tried to look at like what these teams need moving forward, and honestly, like I think Liverpool's going to try and get like another center back, which would definitely help.
They
But
need
I
it,
think,
yeah.
but I don't know, like prediction wise, I don't see him being like super crazy over the top. You know what I mean? Like I think some names that we could see that could 100% move. Like I think um, we could finally see Wilfred Ndidi go from Leicester City. I think, jeez, I mean, there's potential that Kipembe can go from PSG. I know Chelsea's been interested in adding him, Juventus as well. I think Adrian Robrier is another one. I think he could find his way either in the Prem at Newcastle or Manchester United, and then Barcelona. I think the big one that people are going to be talking about, and I just don't see it happening. I think everybody's going to try and say that Kylian Mbappe is going to be a guy that's going to move. They're going to try and move on, try and get
No.
something back. But I just personally just don't see it. I don't. I think Mbappe is there for a little bit, but other than that, I think maybe Victor Osimhen would be a guy that potentially could be on the
I was
way.
just gonna say that
On the way, I like. Don't get me wrong. I think Arsenal and Chelsea would be two teams that would be very much so interested in him. Um, I know United sold Donny Van de Beek already, correct?
no, they send them out on loan to Frankfurt.
Okay. I just, I personally wouldn't be surprised if Jadon Sancho goes to like the Italian league.
So I think one of the teams that we can actually see be very, very heavily invested in this January transfer window is actually none other than Manchester United. With the newer monies coming in from Ineos and looking to make investments and improve the club altogether. We've seen this in new managements and new ownerships all the time, especially when the takeover has just happened. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ineos is a big investor in this January transfer window. People like Victor Osimhen could be a big lineup that they can make, that they could finally just close the deal and not make it happen immediately as of January, but close the deal so that when the summer transfer window comes, he's already on his way to Manchester United, which would be a great addition. Him and Rasmus Højlund, I think, would be a phenomenal duo up front. Much like Haaland and Julian Alvarez, Gabriel Jesus and um, Kai Havertz at Arsenal. It's a duo that you kind of need, right? Um, but some other names that we could potentially see around too that could be moved around are no other than Jean-Claire Todibo from Nice. That's somebody who we've been targeting for the past couple of years. We haven't been able to make anything happen there. Uh, we kind of need to get him here, considering that the signing of bringing um, what's his name? from PSV. Oh, good God, it'll come. It was the very first signing Ten Hag had at Manchester United.
Um,
Either way,
um,
I'll come back to it. But Jean-Claire Todibo would definitely be one. I think Ronald Araujo from Barcelona would be another great investment for Manchester United, considering this is a guy that is highly competitive, very intense, in great shape. Just seeing the fact that he's not being heavily utilized in Barcelona, that doesn't mean that he wouldn't be somebody that could give a good lift to somebody like Manchester United, especially in the defensive end of things, considering that we need help as much as possible over there. He's somebody that can play the right wing, could be a center back, and fits perfectly to the type of football that Rafael Varane was used to playing in the Spanish league. That's a good partner for somebody like Rafael Varane right now. Um, don't be surprised if we see Calvin Phillips finally move out of Manchester City. This is a guy that was brought in from Leeds United to be a really solid choice for Manchester City. Has not been utilized a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes somewhere like Juventus, PSG, maybe even Bayern. That is a guy that has all the potentials to be a good fit at any of those three clubs. Uh, Timo Werner would be another guy that I could probably see in the rotation, the January transfer window. Could he potentially come back to the Premier League? Yes, I'm just not entirely sure what club. There's clubs like West Ham, Aston Villa, uh, even Manchester United, or um, or even Arsenal that could be looking at his direction just to keep him as an additional option in the bench to come off for the striker position. Um, as you mentioned, Donny Van de Beek is already on his way out. He's been transferred on loan to Frankfurt. I agree. Jadon Sancho could also be transferred around. I think that is a guy that, if he's to be transferred on a loan deal, that loan deal is more likely going to end up being a purchase. So could I see him going
sure.
to Real Madrid? Yeah, very much so. But I don't think it would be a wise move for him, considering that in that position you already have Vinicius Jr.
If he's gonna want to succeed, he's gonna need to go to like an Italian league.
I fully agree with that, and I think actually a really fitting club for him in the Italian league would be either Roma with Jose Mourinho or Inter Milan with Inzaghi.
I think you're missing out on Juventus with Massimiliano Allegri.
I agree, but I think Juventus will be better invested in building that center defensive mid position first before figuring out the winger side of things.
I agree. Trust me, but I just
Because
we'll
right now,
see.
right now they also need to figure out what to do if Adrian Rabiot is to leave Juventus, and
Correct.
who's a better, not even a band-aid, but a full together surgery than Calvin Phillips. That's your immediate replacement for Adrian Rabiot. It's not even a replacement; it's an upgrade because I feel like Calvin Phillips brings a lot more to the table
Yeah.
than what Rabiot could potentially offer. Um,
I I think I think my big move that I'm going to say that I think will happen in the January transfer window is that I think that Bayern Munich gets their goalie of the future and they move on from Manuel Neuer.
who do you think they're going to bring?
I think they're going to throw a lot of money at AC Milan's goalie, Mike. I can't even say his last name, Mangalan.
Yeah, Magnin. Yeah,
Mhm.
I fully agree with that. I also wouldn't be extremely surprised if this big name decides to leave PSG just because of how unhappy he seems at the club right now. And that is none other than Gianluigi Donnarumma.
Oh, that's not where I thought you were going to go.
I think Real Madrid figures it out that they need to move away from Thibaut Courtois because he's high up there on age. that Kepa is not their immediate solution, and that they need to pour some money into that position. What other than an accomplished, still fairly young goalkeeper and sustainable goalkeeper than Gianluigi Donnarumma at that position?
I don't hate it. I
That's
don't
where
hate it.
that's where I think we can see spicy things happen in the January transfer window. I think, to your point, I think this is probably going to be very much a quiet window. Probably not a lot of big splashes. Probably more loan deals than anything, just because of the financial economics happening all around the world. Um, but I think if a club is to make a big splash in the transfer window for big names, Gianluigi Donnarumma will be one of them. That could potentially be a big splash happening in the January transfer window.
Uh, I'm trying to think. 'Cause I think Donnarumma could be well in the Prem. I'm trying to think of what
Oh, I
Prem team
agree.
really needs a goaltender. But
That's simple. Chelsea.
he won't do that. He won't go to
Sanchez
Chelsea.
Sanchez is not the
I
keeper
agree.
for
Listen,
Chelsea.
listen.
He's just not.
I agree 100%. I just don't see that move happening. You know, a move I could see happening, especially with Nick Pope getting hurt with a shoulder injury, and Newcastle needs a goalie. I wouldn't be surprised if former Manchester United goaltender David De Gea starts in 2024 there.
I agree. I agree. I would not be surprised with that either. Um, Again, though, I want to see Donnarumma be in the Premier League right now. I just don't have that club that he could be a part of right now to be in that success. Um, with Lloris coming back, I mean Hugo Lloris coming back for Tottenham. There's no replacement there. Their current goalkeeper is doing a tremendous job as well. That was a hell of a signing by Postecoglou, by the way. Um, Manchester United just spent stupid money on Anna. I think realistically they could have waited a little bit more and gone all in on Gianluigi Donnarumma. I think Donnarumma would have been a phenomenal fit at Manchester United. Um, Chelsea is one club that I can see happening. With how unstable that team is right now and the amount of money that they have poured out and the no chemistry working out whatsoever right now, that is a big factor as to why Donnarumma will say no to that offer. Um,
You know what team he would thrive with if if they ever decided that they wanted to go in a different direction with their goaltending? Oh shit.
um,
Sorry, Aston Villa. If they wanted to get rid of Emiliano Martinez, he would be a great fit in Unai Emery's system.
yeah, no, he really would be, but he wants to be at a team where it's more than likely that he could be consistent to compete for Champions League. Only
Yep.
two other teams that I can think of that can be consistent for Champions League competition are all set goalkeeper wise. They have two of the best goalkeepers in the whole world. That is Ederson at Manchester City, and that is your boy Alisson over at Liverpool. There's no other two clubs. Um,
And don't forget, both of them are starting to enter their 30s, so like it's not like they're like super young.
no, no,
So
and they're performing better than they were earlier in their lives.
I agree.
That's the danger. I think realistically for Donnarumma, there's only three different options. Wait it out to figure out what Atletico Madrid decides to do. If they decide to go away from Oblak, and Oblak decides that he wants to transfer somewhere, which Oblak could be a great fit for somebody like Aston Villa, West
Oblak
Ham,
Oblak would be a great
Chelsea.
fit for Chelsea. Oblak
You
would
know
be a Chelsea goaltender.
that I agree with you. But the next goalkeeper of the future would be somebody like Gianluigi Donnarumma, right? So if Donnarumma is smart, I waited out to figure out what Atletico Madrid decides to do moving forward for the goalkeeping position. take a look at the Italian league to see what is the potential coming back there. If Magnin is to be transferred back out of, transferred out of AC Milan, who's to say that he can't reunite back to his club? Why not? Great fit for him. And he was a phenomenal talent at AC Milan. The reason why his profile escalated so fast. Wouldn't be surprised if he would be a good fit for Juventus as well. Szczesny's not getting any younger, and they need a goalkeeper that they can rely on in the future. Donnarumma at Juventus would be a high profile. It would be a phenomenal fit. Don't be surprised again, Manuel Neuer. After this injury, it really opened the eyes for Bayern Munich that they need to look for the goalkeeper of their future. Bayern Munich would be a phenomenal fit for Donnarumma. Even Borussia Dortmund would be a great fit for Donnarumma. Just continue to keep an eye on those leagues, because right now for the Premier League, the clubs that you need to be in order to have a sustainable future for Champions League competition do not need a goalkeeper. That's the problem. You're not the best market right now for the Premier League. Other than that, any final takes?
No, not really. I'll say my final thought for this evening is that our TikTok is going to be back up and running soon again as well.
Yes.
So make sure not to miss the content on there.
Yes, exactly. Other than that, thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure bringing you brand new content again. We look forward to connecting with you every other week. Send us a DM with any topics that you like us to cover, any guests that you guys would like us to bring on the show. As always, Yellow Card Podcast signing off. It's been a pleasure. Diego signing off. Chris Jones. Until again, we'll see you soon.